It was too late. Your mother just passed away.
It's as if he has no emotions. A father's voice? I'm in shock. I can't find the words. My mother, who had been terminally ill, passed away when I was only 8 years old. My ears are ringing. My body stiffens. A vision of my father becomes distorted. My aunt's high-pitched voice is drowned out by the ringing in my ears. There's no way I can accept the reality of my mother's death. But before I knew it, the day of my mother's funeral arrived. At the funeral home, my father and my Aunt Lisa were talking intimately. I was curious about it, so I peeked at them. Then I witnessed my father and Lisa hugging. My mother had just passed away. What a terrible thing to do. To my upset aunt, my father blurted out,
I'm sorry, but I'm serious about you, Lisa.
Lisa's mood improved. With the nuisance, my mother gone, the two of them could finally be together. That must be it. I thought I could live with my father after my mother passed away. But that was just a pipe dream. I was told by my father,
I just called the foster home. They said they'd come to pick you up tomorrow. You're going to be a foster child from tomorrow. Get ready when you understand.
I couldn't receive love from my father or Lisa. I was kicked out of the house where I lived with my mother.
Take care. Don't expect anything from me anymore. I don't intend to have anything to do with you ever again.
Just like that, I was placed in a foster care facility as an orphan. 5 months later, the staff at the facility were making a fuss. Wondering what was going on, I looked out of the window of my room. There, without a doubt, were my father and Lisa.
Is our daughter in there? I just have a little business to take care of.
His loud voice echoed throughout the facility.
I can't withdraw money from my daughter's account. I need to unfreeze it, so give me permission to take her out.
My father's aggressive attitude, and behind him, Lisa smoking a cigarette. Our eyes almost met through the window. I threw myself at the two of them. Who are these people? My name is Sarah. I'm 18 years old. I'm a college student working part-time at a flower shop. Tomorrow, on my way home from class, I'll stop by the flower shop. I'll place a bouquet, inspired by my mother, on her grave. When my mother died, I was at the lowest point in my life. I'm happy now, but I never want to go back to those days. Mom, I'm 18 now. Thanks to Grandpa and Grandma, I'm really feeling happy right now. And I've set a new goal for myself. 10 years ago, I had just turned 8. Back then, I was living with my mother. Occasionally, my Aunt Lisa would visit our house. She was very flashy and always had a loud voice. Apparently, she was struggling financially and would ask my mother for money. Cut it out, Lisa. How many times have I told you? Every time Lisa visited, my mother's mood would sour. It was a familiar sight. But I wished Lisa would go home quickly. But it was the same routine every time. Hearing it, I couldn't help but sigh. If you just split the inheritance your parents left us, I'll stop coming here. You know, it's written in the will that I shouldn't give it to you. That's why I'm telling you I can't give it to you. How many times do I have to repeat myself? I was told by my mother to stay in my room until Lisa left. She probably didn't want me to interact with Lisa too much. Indeed, Lisa didn't seem like a good influence on a child. I could hear their arguing even from my room. Then, Lisa's voice changed in tone, echoed. Sis, I'm calling an ambulance right now. I ran down the stairs and hurriedly opened the living room door. My mother was bleeding from her mouth. I knew immediately it was serious. My mother was taken to the hospital, but fortunately, it wasn't life-threatening. However, she had to stay in the hospital for further tests. I was so surprised when she suddenly collapsed. What are we going to do about Sarah while you're in the hospital? I think a home helper will come. Lisa nodded, seeming satisfied. After a while, a home helper came to pick me up at the hospital. Well, I'm going home too. Lisa waved at me. I stared at Lisa's back as she left. My mother's tests were supposed to take a week, but she ended up staying in the hospital. The results of the detailed examination showed she had terminal cancer that had already spread throughout her body. I was stunned by the news, but my mother slowly nodded, accepting the diagnosis with an awkward smile. Lisa was also present when the diagnosis was given, and even she couldn't hide her shock. Lisa and I were asked to leave my mother's room, and we waited in the waiting room. During that time, the home helper was supposed to talk to my mother. "Terminal cancer? I need to be careful too. I thought her complexion was bad, but who would have thought it would be this serious?" My mother's parents were already gone, and Lisa was her only blood relative. Lisa smiled at my anxious face, but I still couldn't bring myself to like her. I'm sure my mother felt the same way about Lisa. "When something happens to your mom, I will take care of you. Don't worry too much, or your mom will get even more worried." Even Lisa was trying to be considerate of me. The first person called into my mother's room was Lisa. If my mother were to pass away, what would happen to me? Terminal cancer being miraculously cured was just a fantasy, something even an 8-year-old like me understood. I was left alone in the waiting room, lost in thought. I was seized by a vague sense of unease. But still, I had my father, Robert. He was living apart from my mother and me, but he would occasionally contact me secretly. I once asked him on the phone why he wasn't living with us. "Oh, that's because I fell in love with your Aunt Lisa, but that's not your concern. But I love you very much, so I won't get a divorce." Without any hesitation, my father told me he was having an affair with Lisa. It seemed like, in his mind, his relationship with my mother was completely over. That's why he didn't mind telling me the truth. It felt that way. One of the reasons why my mother and Lisa didn't get along was my father's affair with Lisa. After learning about this, I decided not to ask my mother about my father and kept it to myself. I also decided to keep my phone calls with my father a secret. After a while, I was also called into my mother's room. She must have cried a lot. Even though she was looking down, I could see that her eyes were swollen. "Sarah, I'm fine. I might be able to go home tomorrow," she said, hugging me. Lisa, who was watching, muttered, "What if Sarah takes you seriously? And what are you going to do? How are you going to support a child alone?" My aunt, who is usually sloppy, was scolding my mother. "I've thought about it a lot, but I haven't come to a decision yet. I know my time is short." It seemed like my mother felt she had no one to rely on but Lisa. She seemed weaker than usual. Lisa stroked my head, and then she said, "I'll take care of Sarah. I'll be her guardian and raise her in your place. As her aunt, there shouldn't be any problem, right?" My mother's eyes widened. Entrusting me to Lisa, who lived a loose lifestyle, must have been a terrifying thought for my mother. But Lisa's expression was serious. "There's no one else who can take care of Sarah but me. Besides, Robert can't take care of her, can he? That's absolutely impossible, right?" I wondered if there was another reason why my father couldn't take care of me besides Lisa's presence. But I kept listening to Lisa. "If I die and I abandon Sarah, she'll be all alone. You knew that, didn't you?" Was my father's existence erased in Lisa's mind? My mother looked down and remained silent. She must have had her own reasons. But if my father offered to take me in, would I end up living with him and Lisa? "Well, think about it. We're sisters, so you can rely on me when you need to." When Lisa said that, my mother lashed out, as if a dam had burst. "Leave Sarah alone. I'd rather put her in a foster home than let you take care of her. If that's not possible, I'll keep hiring a home helper." Her voice was so loud, it echoed throughout the hospital. A nurse rushed over, looking startled, and put a hand on my mother's shoulder. "Miss Smith, please calm down." Lisa lightly kicked a nearby folding chair. My mother's words must have added to her stress. "I was trying to be nice, but a foster home? That's so sad for Sarah. And keep hiring a home helper? Can you afford to hire one until Sarah grows up? It doesn't look like you have that kind of money." My mother worked full-time and was always frugal. Every time Lisa asked for money, my mother would be troubled. My mother was clearly not thinking straight. I guess inheriting your parents' money all to yourself has its perks. Even if you send Sarah to a foster home, you don't want me involved, right? You won't leave me with her, no matter how much she likes me. I'll never forgive you for what you did to me and Sarah. Do you even understand what you're doing? My mother's grim expression made me hold my breath. It seemed like Lisa had done something to my mother and me. It was the affair with my father. It must have been a serious situation. It's fine. Sarah doesn't know. Even if she's just a child. There are things you just shouldn't do. There's no way you can be Sarah's guardian. Lisa had an unpleasant, smug look on her face. She was probably enjoying seeing my mother, who was usually composed, in such a state. To calm my agitated mother, Lisa and I were moved to another room. There, I asked Lisa a question, because I was worried about my father, whom I had never met. Why doesn't Dad come to the hospital? Your dad can't accept your mom's illness. Eventually, my mother officially hired a home helper. She seemed to have explained everything to the helper, who treated me with an unusual amount of sympathy. Given the circumstances, she promised to work as long as possible. Well, Sarah, let's go home. The home helper took my hand. I waved at Lisa, who looked at us suspiciously. This was the first time I had done something like this. But Lisa quickly regained her composure. Bye, Sarah. I hope you can live with Aunt Lisa someday. The next day, I visited the hospital with the home helper again. Lisa had already finished visiting my mother and was smoking in the waiting room. As soon as she saw me and the helper, she grimaced and called out to us. I just had a fight with your mom and got kicked out of the room. Did you fight about Sarah again? The hand holding mine tightened. The helper was cautious, with beads of sweat on her forehead. Yeah, but I won't budge on Sarah. She's my only blood relative. It's best for her to live with me. My mother's voice echoed from her room. I told you, don't go near Sarah ever again. A nurse tried to calm her down, and I held my breath. What did Lisa do to my mother? A nurse found me and the helper and guided us to the nurse's station. It seemed like my mother had consulted a social worker about my future. Lisa was also present, and it seemed she had suggested that I be placed in her care. I also thought it would be best to leave Sarah with her aunt, but after hearing the details, I understand it's not that simple. The helper and the nurse whispered to each other. They were probably talking about something they didn't want me to hear. Soon after, I was taken to my mother's room. My future was explained to me, along with the home helper. My mother's eyes were bloodshot, perhaps from being agitated. It's financially impossible to keep hiring a home helper, so I'm thinking of temporarily placing you in a foster home. I wanted to tell you first. I couldn't help but react to the word foster home. I had a strong fear of it. The adult's serious expressions made me realize this was not a dream, but reality. I couldn't help but ask my mother, even though I had decided not to. I was so scared of losing a blood relative. Is living with Dad really not an option? My mother looked away awkwardly. Then, the nurse, looking at me sadly, spoke in my mother's place. Remember, that's not possible. You can't go there no matter what. But I was still in contact with my father. I'd rather live with him than go to a foster home. That feeling grew stronger. I wanted to see my father before losing my mother, but I couldn't say that and worry my mother. I was torn by conflicting emotions. Then my mother spoke. Sarah, your father's far away. I'm sorry, but it's just not possible. My mother usually didn't beat around the bush like this. She must have been very considerate of my feelings. Judging from the reaction of the adults around me, it seemed nearly impossible for me to live with my father. The nurse especially looked at me with pity. I had never actually met my father, but he was always kind to me on the phone. How happy would I be if I could live with such a kind father? Even if my mother passed away, if my father were by my side, I could live strongly. Every time I visited my mother in the hospital, I thought about my father, whom I had never met. 2 months passed. My mother's condition wasn't improving, and she was still planning to put me in a foster home. The social worker brought brochures of foster homes. We discussed it while looking at them. Every time I saw them, my heart sank. My mother noticed my mood and hugged me tightly. The IV drip had left painful bruises on my mother's arm. Every time I saw them, I swallowed my own opinions. That was all I could do for my mother.
I'm doing this to protect you. Sarah, please understand. I'll definitely protect you.
The nurse wiped away tears in my mother's words. What was my mother fighting against? This was the best she could do. Why did everyone insist that putting a child in a foster home was the right thing to do? I couldn't understand why the adults were trying to abandon me. I started to become suspicious. The only person I could find hope in was my father. 3 days later, my mother's condition worsened. She had been given 3 months to live. It seemed like she was reaching her limit. I was prepared, but tears still flowed naturally. The home helper and I rushed to the hospital. In front of my mother's room was a man I didn't recognize. The home helper's eyes widened, and she stared at the man. The man glared back at the helper, as if he had hostile intentions. But when he saw me, he smiled. The home helper hid my hand behind her back. Her hand was sweaty, and I felt a sense of faintness.
Sarah, it's Dad.
The first words from my father, whom I was meeting for the first time, were in the gentle voice I was used to hearing on the phone. But the home helper shouted in a panic, "Hey, don't just talk to her like that. More importantly, Miss Smith's condition is..." My father seemed to think my mother's condition was stable because of his relaxed smile. I thought so too. But my father's next words brought me back to reality.
Your mother passed away a little while ago. I was a little too late,
he muttered, looking me straight in the eyes. It was as if he had no emotions. My ears were ringing. My body stiffened. My vision of my father became distorted. When I was about to fall, the home helper hurriedly caught me. "Don't just talk to Sarah like that." Lisa's high-pitched voice was drowned out by the ringing in my ears. I lost consciousness. I was only 8 years old. There was no way I could accept the reality of my mother's death. When I woke up, I was lying in my mother's hospital room. In the next bed, my mother was being carefully cleaned by a nurse. I watched the scene calmly. When my brain understood that my mother had passed away, tears naturally flowed down my cheeks. Perhaps due to shock, I started experiencing memory lapses. My memory jumped, and the next thing I knew, I was attending my mother's funeral. The home helper was filled with grief, while my father and Lisa remained calm. I had no memory of what had happened in between. What was going on? My memory was failing, and I didn't know what to do. I was a child alone, struggling with this strange phenomenon, and filled with anxiety. The home helper put her hand on my shoulder. Only then did I feel a sense of clarity. "It's been tough, hasn't it? You can call me any time." Lisa glared at the home helper. "We're not paying you anymore, so don't get involved with Sarah." "I still have work to do." The home helper, who had some funeral arrangements to take care of, left me on a bench in the waiting room. Meanwhile, my father and Lisa started having a disturbing conversation on the other side of a thin wall.
"We should start preparing. Just because your sister died doesn't mean we should dwell on it forever."
My father's words filled me with a vague sense of unease. I was curious about the two of them, so I quietly peeked beyond the wall. Lisa was glaring at my father. My father, as if caught in a snake's gaze, continued.
"You were the one who suggested this plan. I didn't think your sister would pass away so soon."
"The plan is ruined. There's a lot of paperwork to do. If you'd been able to handle my sister, I wouldn't have had to go through all this trouble. Why couldn't you seduce a single woman?" My father and Lisa were talking about my mother, but something felt off. It was as if my mother and father weren't married.
"I'm sorry, but I'm serious about you, Lisa."
Lisa seemed to be in a better mood, her voice more cheerful. "Well, I guess I was foolish to lend you to my sister." I couldn't understand these complex adult relationships. I had seen them in TV dramas, but they were beyond my childish comprehension. But I knew my mother had some kind of conflict with my father and Lisa.
We can finally be together, Lisa. It's been over 10 years since we started dating. It's been a long time. Now we can be a real married couple.
My mother had just passed away, yet the two of them started hugging intimately. Did my father date Lisa before marrying my mother? I interpreted it as, with the nuisance, my mother gone, the two of them could finally be together. My sister was always so cautious. Watching the two of them made me feel sick. I tried to suppress my nausea, but when I thought of my mother's frustration, tears naturally overflowed. I wanted to live with my father. I regretted saying that to my mother when she was alive, but I couldn't take it back. After that, the home helper came to pick me up. On the way home from the funeral, I thought about telling her about my father and Lisa's relationship. But now that my mother was gone, I didn't think it would make a difference, so I kept quiet. A few days later, the home helper volunteered to help sort through my mother's belongings. Then Lisa visited our house. The home helper tried to chase her away, but Lisa barged in anyway. Sarah, pack those things in boxes. There's probably nothing valuable anyway. I'll look for something else, so don't get in my way. Lisa started rummaging through my mother's room. It seemed like she was looking for the house deed and other documents. Please, don't touch Miss Smith's things. I'm Sarah's aunt. I have the right to manage my sister's belongings. You're the outsider here. What are you doing in someone else's house? Lisa couldn't find the house deed. Where did my sister hide those documents? I watched Lisa from the side. My mother had promised to put me in a foster home before she passed away. The deadline was approaching. Tomorrow, I would leave this house. Thinking about it made me cry. I was so desperate that I wished I could live in this house with even someone like Lisa. But I couldn't say that out loud. That night, my father visited our house. Oh, you're here. You could have waited until after Sarah was in the foster home. You're so impatient. Lisa called out, but I saw hope in my father. If my father lived in this house, I wouldn't have to go to a foster home. I had a faint hope. I still resisted living with strangers. That's why I was clinging to any straw. The home helper hid in the hallway when she saw my father. She seemed very cautious. My father came in, looked at me pitifully, and said,
Lisa and I got remarried.
He said that and walked into the living room. I followed him desperately. Even if my father and Lisa were remarried, my father and I were still blood relatives. I smiled at my father. I could get along with Lisa now. I was so desperate to stay in this house that I was willing to put up with anything. Welcome home, Dad. My father stopped when I called out to him. He glared at me.
What are you playing at?
But you're going to live here, right? And you remarried Lisa, so I want to live here too.
I didn't marry Lisa for you, and I don't intend to live here with you. I'm just going to live here with Lisa.
My father's cold attitude. The living room was filled with a heavy atmosphere. It seemed like my father wanted to live with Lisa alone.
You're Lisa's niece, but she doesn't feel any affection for you.
I looked at Lisa. She had a triumphant look on her face. Well, of course. It was your mom's decision, so don't blame me.
I called the foster home earlier. I asked them to come pick you up now, but they said they'd come tomorrow. You're going to be a foster child from tomorrow. Get your things ready.
I opened the living room door and leaned against the wall, sliding down to the floor. Ever since my mother passed away, I had been experiencing ringing in my ears and dizziness. The extreme tension and stress were making me lose my mind. The home helper saw me and hugged me. It seemed like Lisa, who had remarried my father, no longer had any use for me. The next day, as promised, the staff from the foster home came to pick me up. Even though it was my mother's decision, I was shocked that my father had rejected me. I stared at the staff who came to pick me up. They seemed nervous. I also checked my father's expression. He had a big smile on his face. This was reality. I had completely given up.
Goodbye. Don't expect anything from me. I don't intend to have anything to do with you from now on.
Was this man really my father? That question popped into my head. Where did the kind father I used to talk to on the phone go? Just like that, I was placed in a foster care facility as an orphan. The home helper accompanied me to the facility. I said a tearful goodbye to her there. The harsh words my father threw at me were healed by the home helper. At first, I was very anxious about living in the facility, but after 3 days, I got used to it. I never got used to living at home when my mother was hospitalized, which was strange. I thought I would grow up in this facility. 5 months later, the staff at the facility were making a fuss. Wondering what was going on, I looked out of the window of my room. There, without a doubt, were my father and Lisa. They looked intimidating, and not at all refined. They had abandoned me, so what were they doing here? My frustration made it hard for me to stay calm, and my heart was racing. My father was yelling at the staff, trying to force his way past them.
Is Sarah in there? I just have a little business to take care of.
His loud voice echoed throughout the facility.
I can't withdraw money from Sarah's account. I need to unfreeze it, so give me permission to take her out.
My father's aggressive attitude, and behind him, Lisa smoking a cigarette. Our eyes almost met through the window. I quickly hid behind the curtain. My father's yelling continued for a while. The staff managed to get rid of them, but I sighed, knowing that they would be back. That day, the staff secured my room lightly, and they promised they wouldn't let those two near me. My father and Lisa started coming to the facility every few days. At first, they were aggressive, but they seemed to have reflected on their behavior and changed their appearance. They were dressed in suits and looked serious. The director, a staff member, and a new staff member dealt with them. I watched them from a hidden spot. A senior at the facility had shown me this place. During the meeting, my father spoke politely, a stark contrast to his previous behavior.
I'd like to have Lisa, Sarah's aunt, appointed as Sarah's legal guardian. That's all. It's common for an aunt to become a legal guardian, isn't it?
My father seemed satisfied with the staff response, a smirk appearing on his face.
If the real father is alive, there's no need for that. We heard from Sarah's former caregiver that the two of you are married.
The new staff member tilted his head, not understanding the pair's true intentions. It's a long story, but I need to become Sarah's legal guardian. It's very complicated, but could you tell that to Sarah? What kind of circumstances were they? But this time, my request to go outside was denied. If you think about it, my father had my ID. There was no need for Lisa to become my guardian. I was fed up and went back to my room. Then, Lisa's shrill voice echoed in the hallway. Her unnecessarily loud voice irritated me. Someone stopped her. Lisa decided to take drastic measures. Before going home, she pushed the new staff member aside and started looking for me. She quickly spotted my room with my name on it. When she opened the door, I was surprised. Seeing my expression, Lisa smiled. It was a smile I had never seen before, and it sent shivers down my spine. I was frozen in place. Only a few seconds had passed since the new staff member's voice was heard from the meeting room. Long time no see, Sarah. How have you been? Aunt Lisa has been wanting to see you. I was too stunned to respond. Lisa seemed annoyed by my silence and barged into the room. She grabbed my arm and started yelling. I'm not doing this because I want to. You're just like your mother, always causing trouble. What are you trying to do to me? A male staff member rushed into my room. He tried to pull Lisa away from me, but her long nails dug into my arm. Even though she was being restrained, Lisa continued to vent her anger at me. Do you know how much I've suffered because of you and your mother? Lisa was held back with her arms behind her, as if she were the victim. My father slowly entered the room. The male staff member was also surprised. My ears started ringing again. I still couldn't accept what was happening in front of me. I said, in a lifeless tone, probably revealing my true feelings, Who are you people? Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. She was clearly disturbed by my strange behavior. Sarah, what's wrong? Something's not right. Lisa was taken back to the meeting room, still restrained. I was also forced to sit in. I couldn't look at my father or Lisa's face. I couldn't calm down, and I was having trouble breathing. Sarah experienced mental shock and developed amnesia. During a medical checkup, she confided in us, and we had her examined at a hospital, which confirmed the diagnosis. She has no memory, especially of the time between her mother's death and when she entered the facility. We heard from a former caregiver that she also started interacting with her father and aunt around that time. That's why she doesn't remember the two of them very well. It was true that my memory had become hazy, but I remembered my father and Lisa's faces. However, parts of my memory were missing. What scared me was that I didn't remember what those two were plotting. That's why I decided to pretend to have forgotten them.
I see. Sarah has been through a lot. Is that why you wouldn't let her out? If she has amnesia, I think she should be temporarily returned home for treatment.
I didn't think my father would actually treat me. The staff members were bewildered by his strange suggestion.
I'll check with the director,
the staff member said, taking me out of the meeting room. The director and the new staff member also left the room. The male staff member who had been restraining Lisa released her. Everyone waited outside the meeting room. Then my father said something unbelievable.
Sarah, losing her memory is convenient for us. We can temporarily take her in and quickly finish the guardianship procedures. Once that's done, we can just dump her back here.
If it were that easy, I wouldn't be going through all this trouble. We wouldn't be here if we could have finished it sooner. My father and Lisa didn't realize that their conversation was being overheard.
Your sister should have finished the procedure before she died. If we just hadn't become a couple, this wouldn't have happened.
If you had registered your marriage with my sister, you would have become Sarah's father. I made eye contact with the new staff member, but he just tilted his head. It seemed my father and mother were not legally married. And legally, he wasn't my father. That must have been it. Their argument continued after that. Now, I understood why Lisa was in such a hurry to become my guardian. The director and staff had been dealing with my father and Lisa's persistent visits for a while. But this time, because of Lisa's outburst, the director decided to ban them from the facility. When the director entered the meeting room, my father and Lisa, who had been making a scene, fell silent.
I'm sorry, but please leave.
Why? I'll return Sarah as soon as we're done.
Sarah is not an object. You can't just use her for your convenience.
The director's voice was strained, as if he was trying to suppress his emotions. He seemed disgusted by their attitude toward me, and he let out a sigh. The two of them flew into a rage. Then they left without saying another word. After that, they stopped coming to visit. Things around the facility started getting damaged, and there were days when garbage was scattered around. It was obvious that my father and Lisa were behind it. Graffiti, criticizing the director, staff, and facility, was found on the facility walls. The handwriting looked exactly like Lisa's. These malicious acts continued for a while. Each time, the staff and children would clean it up together. I felt responsible and apologized to everyone many times. I reached up to pick up some trash near the facility gate. Then someone grabbed my hand. When I looked up, my father was smiling at me. A child from the facility saw this and shouted, "I'll go get the director." My father tried to drag me away, pulling my arm forcibly. Lisa was waiting in a car behind him. Fortunately, a male staff member who was nearby stopped my father.
"Please stop."
My father silently let go of my arm and swung his fist at the staff member's face. The staff member dodged it just in time, and my father only ended up falling on his backside. Then, a loud voice rang out.
"Police, put your hands up."
A staff member, who had seen my father and Lisa near the facility earlier, had called the police. Accompanied by the staff member, I looked away from the two and tried to go back inside. Then Lisa screamed hysterically. The ringing in my ears started again because of her screeching voice. "Listen, if it weren't for me, you'd be all alone. Her words pierced my heart. I couldn't help but long for a blood relative. No matter how terrible they were still my blood relatives. I was overwhelmed with complex emotions, and I decided to bury my feelings. One day, I heard a familiar name on the TV. A news program was responding on a woman arrested for fraud. When I looked closely at the screen, it was Lisa. I felt a chill run down my spine. The staff members who were also watching TV were shocked. Later, the name of her accomplice, my father, was also read. But it was a name I had never heard before. It seemed that man was not my real father after all. I didn't know if it was happiness or emptiness, but tears welled up in my eyes. With the two of them arrested, the harassment of the facility stopped completely. That same day, the director explained the situation regarding my father and Lisa to me. He spread out a copy of the family registry that my mother had submitted when she enrolled me in this facility. My father's, my mother's, and my name were listed on it. It wasn't the name of the arrested man. The director pointed out my father's name. He explained it in a way that even a child like me could understand. You see the deceased mark next to your mother's name? There's one next to your father's name, too. That means your father, Robert, is already dead. I covered my mouth with both hands. That father was an imposter after all. So who was the man you called Dad? That man wasn't Robert. I heard about this from your mother before. The reason my mother was angry with Lisa, it was because she used that man, making him pretend to be my real father. He manipulated me. Your real father passed away before you turned 1. Memories of my mother and Lisa arguing before she passed away flashed through my mind. I was struck by a severe headache and held my head. The director hugged me and gently stroked my back.
It's okay, Sarah. Adults aren't as foolish as you think.
But the director's comfort felt empty. After Lisa's arrest, I started receiving many adoption offers. It was partly due to some tabloid reports. My name was withheld, but I was mentioned as Lisa's niece. Prank calls from the victims increased, and the staff was busy dealing with them. The worst was a couple who wanted to adopt me. They had sent struggling actors to infiltrate the facility and investigate my background. Because of the incident with my father and Lisa, I had become very distrustful. I was at my wit's end. My father and Lisa continued to torment me, even after their arrest. A month after the commotion, things at the facility finally started to calm down. 2 months later, Lisa was sentenced to 10 years in prison. She had multiple prior convictions, so her sentence was quite heavy. My father was also found to have aided in Lisa's fraud and was sentenced to 6 years. I thought this was the end of it all and tried to forget the bad things. One day, an elderly couple contacted the facility, saying they wanted to adopt me. I had experienced so much that I had completely lost faith in people. No matter how nice they seemed, I was planning to quickly finish the conversation and refuse. I checked the meeting room from the window. I still couldn't shake the habit of checking first, fearing that my father and Lisa might be there. But I saw the elderly couple and the director, who seemed to be in a good mood. Feeling relieved, I called out and entered the room. "Excuse me."
"Sarah, these are your grandparents."
The director, who was usually calm, had a cheerful voice. In contrast, my heart sank. The director was jumping the gun. I had no intention of being adopted, but when I saw the elderly couple, I felt strangely at peace. When I started to speak, the director interrupted me, clearly excited.
"I have wonderful news. These are Sarah's paternal grandparents. I've been in contact with them, and we finally reached an agreement."
My grandmother smiled and took my hand. It was a very warm hand. I felt like I should never let go. "We want to take you home right away. But before that, there are some things we need to explain to you, Sarah." My grandparents, who somehow resemble me. They were completely different from when I first met my father. I had never met my real father, and naturally, I had never met my paternal grandparents either. I had lost faith in people, but for some reason, I felt like I could trust these two. It seemed that way because of the incident with Lisa. My grandparents couldn't contact me. My grandparents intended to take me in once I was emotionally ready. Before that, my grandfather explained the situation to me.
Your mother asked us to protect you. She said she was being harassed by your aunt and a man pretending to be your father.
The director seemed to know about this, looking away uncomfortably.
She said your aunt was always lurking around you. She wanted us to take care of you, but she was worried you would be found immediately.
My grandfather gently held my grandmother's hand.
She begged to keep you away from that man, especially the one pretending to be Robert. She was terrified, saying she didn't know what he was thinking. She was very cautious because of that.
When my grandparents heard about Lisa's arrest, they immediately contacted the facility. But they had consulted with the director and decided to wait until the sentencing, just to be safe. That's why it took so long. I felt relieved and lost all my strength. Tears of joy wouldn't stop flowing. They were different from the tears I had shed before. My real father, whom I had longed for, his parents had come to get me. It seemed that the home helper also knew I had grandparents, but because of the incident with my father, she didn't know what to do. A few days after my 9th birthday, I was legally adopted by my paternal grandparents. The home helper was delighted, as if it were her own good news. In my grandparents' house, there were many pictures of my parents holding me. My real father, whom I saw for the first time, resembled me. Then I learned about my mother's deep love for me. After that, I lived a normal, happy life as an ordinary girl. My childhood memories are still hazy in some parts. But I'm happy now, and that's enough. I want to maintain my current life. I think that's how I can repay the adult who protected me from danger. 10 years have passed since Lisa's arrest. She has less than 6 months left until her release. I'm attending college and studying to become a police officer. I hope to be able to reform even a few bad adults.